Hello again. My name is Matt Brown. I'm a solutions architect here at Endor Labs. And in this video, we're going to talk about what's actually risky about open source dependencies, right? We talk about how they are risky. Why? What about them? And I'd like to break this out into four different categories, if you will. So visibility, compliance, security, and operations. Typically with SCA, the first two that do come to mind are security and compliance, my known vulnerabilities and my license risk associated with the open source components that I knowingly and unknowingly bring in, right? That is how it's always been done. However, there's a lot more risk that can be associated with these open source dependencies once you bring them in. So quickly, let's just talk about compliance and security. Compliance is your licensing. Hey, does this component that's being brought in require me to also open source whatever piece of software I'm writing to the world? Does it actually require that? If it does, I have to make it open source. If there is no license, or if the license states something differently, I have to be able to make sure I'm right within line with whatever the license requires me to do with the open source component that has it. So there's regulatory requirements that push this. For example, SBOM. There's some categories of risk across those, like vulnerabilities for FedRAMP. And we also really need to understand the intellectual property of those licenses and what needs to be complied within them. That's the first thing, compliance. That could introduce some risk to the organization. Security, pretty obvious here, right? Known vulnerabilities, known CVEs, okay? That is what it has always been with this SCA, right? That has always been, hey, I have my components, tell me about the known vulnerabilities within them. In open source, in these components, things have changed a little bit in the past few years, right? Known vulnerabilities, that's one everybody knows about. These are simple mistakes that, as a developer, I have unfortunately written a code defect, a bug that causes a vulnerability. It's responsibly disclosed by CVE numbering authority, or it's responsibly disclosed to the maintainer, whatever have you. And it is then given a CVE identifier. And now everybody knows about it, right? This is what is typically done. Recently, there have been things that kind of fall into the more supply chain security attacks, right? That really change what we see as risky in open source components. So things like the compromise of a legitimate package. So it's a package, that a component that everybody uses, but somebody has found a way to tweak it so it maliciously does something that is dangerous and that is a threat. May not have a CVE associated with it, but maybe it has a malware associated. Somebody injected malware into it, whatever have you, right? So somebody takes this component. It's not the maintainer adding their own code and making a mistake or something like that. Somebody has knowingly gone in and planted something malicious within the legitimate component. Or maybe there's something like name confusion attacks. Like if there's something that says Matt's component, but the O in component is changed to a 0. And if you're just quickly, okay, let me grab Matt's component because it does ABC, I need it to, oh, okay, this looks good, let me go ahead and grab it. But mistakenly, you grab Matt's component that has a 0 instead of an O in it. That's a name confusion attack, essentially, where something looks like what it should be, but is actually somebody switched the letter, and it's a completely different component than what you actually realize, right? These kind of like different attacks, other than just CVEs, have really changed the risk landscape when it comes to specifically security, right? Then there's a couple additional ones that not a lot of people think about when they're thinking about open source. And again, this is newer, and this is just additional risk around your open source components. So visibility, you can't know what you can't see. And if that happens, you really don't have any hope of managing whatever risks you may have. So things like, okay, am I using an SDA tool to find these dependencies way down the dependency graph, maybe to the nth degree, 20, 30, 40 layers deep? We had one user who, it was something like 76 layers deep, where of all these different dependencies, Can I actually see that? Do I actually know what's going on there? Or something like unmanaged dependencies, right? They may not use a specific package manager, but internally we manage packages this way, and it's an unmanaged dependency because of whatever reason we have, right? So that's the visibility. You really need to be able to see what you actually have. And then there's the operations of it. I also like to call this like the hygiene of it all, of your open source dependency, your open source health across the dependency lifecycle, right? So that starts with selecting, hey, am I picking the right component? Am I picking one that's well maintained, that people are committing code to, that people are merging in pull requests for, that has recent activity, that's of high quality, right? Picking the right dependency off the right foot can really save a lot of headaches later on, right? So, okay, I've picked the right dependency. Now I need to maintain that one. Am I keeping it updated? Is it 25 versions behind and 2 years since I last updated it and ran Maven install or npm install or upgraded to a more recent version? Have there been a ton of changes within that component that could break my code, right? It's not just saying I need to upgrade to the latest and greatest version every single time. I need to be able to get all the information that I need from this component that I'm maintaining in order to know, does it introduce additional risk, not only from a security or compliance standpoint, but from a breakage standpoint too. So I want to make sure that the dependency is being well maintained. Are they keeping my applications high quality, stable? Am I using a sensible and well maintained dependency? Am I using ones that are more up to date, that people are actually actively contributing to? Things like that. This is the whole operations side of it. So those are just some of the things that, in addition to compliance and security or known CVEs and licenses, this is some of the additional components about what makes open source dependencies risky. And in a couple of videos, we're actually going to dive a little bit deeper into each one of these. So thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one.